Erich Fromm once wrote, "The deepest need of man is to overcome his separateness." And yet, ironically, that very need is what keeps us trapped in painful relationships. Especially when you love someone with an avoidant attachment style. You know the feeling. They are distant, cold, never fully present with you. You speak, they fall silent. You reach for closeness. They create space. You crave love, and in return you receive crumbs just enough to keep your hope alive. And despite the pain, you stay. Why? Because in those rare moments when they are gentle, when they smile, or when they give you that one rare hug, it convinces you that maybe this time will be different. That hope, combined with your fear of abandonment, the guilt of wanting to walk away, or the self-doubt that whispers, "Maybe I'm asking for too much," becomes the chain that binds you. The truth is, avoidants don't need chains to hold you. It is your own psychology, your own attachment wounds, that create the invisible rope that keeps you stuck. And unless you face this, you'll continue staying, not out of love, but out of fear. The real question is, are you ready to confront this cycle and finally step out of it? The most puzzling thing about loving an avoidant is that their appeal rarely comes from being loud or dazzling. On the contrary, their charm often lies in their silence, their calmness, and the aura of maturity they project. They rarely create drama, they don't explode in jealousy, and they don't overwhelm you with sudden bursts of emotion. For someone with an anxious attachment style, that calm feels like a lifeboat in the middle of a storm. Finally, I've found someone who doesn't make me spin out of control, someone whose stability might heal my own insecurity. That image of a safe harbor is what pulls you into the relationship with hope. But the appeal of the avoidant doesn't stop at peace. Very often, it's their coldness, their unpredictability, their inaccessibility that sets off a fire inside you. You start asking yourself, what are they really thinking? Why won't they share more? Why do they pull away every time I get closer? These questions turn into an invisible chase. You begin to believe that if you're smart enough, patient enough, loving enough, then one day they will finally open up. And this is where attraction transforms into a subtle trap. You don't just want love, you want to win a psychological game. Avoidants often radiate a very particular kind of self-sufficiency. They might be successful, or simply live in a tidy, independent way that makes you admire them. In today's world, where so many people are entangled in drama, that independence feels like a signal. This is what real adulthood looks like. But over time, you begin to realize that this maturity isn't entirely healthy. It is a form of defense. They control themselves so tightly that they cannot risk giving closeness. They build a fortress around themselves. And you mistake it for a door that only your love can open. And then one day, the cycle begins. You give more, they give less. The more you hope, the more they retreat. The more you try to prove yourself, the more silent they become. And instead of feeling loved, you feel like you're battling against an invisible force. The force of hope that one day they will change. And that hope is the strongest chain that keeps you stuck. If the initial appeal of the avoidant feels like a cool breeze on a hot day, then the process of bonding with them gradually reveals a painful paradox. At first, staying with them feels natural. They care just enough. They are gentle in the right moments. And this convinces you that this is the foundation of a mature relationship. There are quiet evenings of conversation, moments when they listen, days when they give you a sense of safety, and those experiences make you think, I can build a future with this person. At this stage, their calmness and distance are even interpreted as balance, as a sign of self-control. You believe you've made the right choice. But over time, another truth sets in. What felt like staying slowly turns into being stuck. One day, you realize you are no longer happy. You feel the absence, the lack of intimacy, the lack of partnership, the lack of true connection. You start asking yourself, am I asking for too much? Am I too sensitive? Or maybe this person really can't give me more than this. And with these questions, confusion creeps in. You can't leave, but you also no longer feel at peace staying. This stuckness doesn't just exist in the reality of the relationship, it takes root in your mind. Staying means you continue to choose, to hope, to make plans together. Being stuck means you live in a gray zone where you know something is wrong but cannot pinpoint exactly what. You doubt yourself, you doubt your partner, and eventually you doubt the very value of the relationship. Through their withdrawal and their breadcrumbs of affection, the avoidant activates this cycle of doubt inside you. The difference between staying and being stuck is the thin line between hope and despair. When you stay, you still believe you can move forward together. When you're stuck, you've lost that belief, but you also don't have the strength to walk away. And that is the hallmark of relationships with avoidance. They don't necessarily do anything overtly terrible, but they do too little to satisfy you and just enough to keep you from leaving. And this is the critical turning point. To truly understand stuckness, you must look deeper into the hidden psychological mechanisms within each subtype of avoidant. Because not all avoidants are the same. Each form comes with its own unique trap, holding you in place in very different ways. Once you learn to distinguish them, you'll finally see why you continue to stay, even though your heart has long grown weary. After realizing the difference between staying and being stuck, the exploration doesn't end there. What keeps you stuck is not just a vague sense of confusion, but it also depends on the type of avoidant you are attached to. Each form of avoidant creates its own trap, holding you in place with a very specific psychological mechanism. Some keep you bound by the fear of losing love, others by pity, and still others by making you doubt yourself. Understanding these patterns is the first step to seeing the cycle clearly and freeing yourself from it. A, the distant avoidant. This is the person who lives like an island. They are fiercely independent, put their personal freedom above all else, and almost always maintain a distance. When you move closer, seeking intimacy, they immediately pull away. Yet, ironically, when you begin to feel tired and step back, they suddenly offer you a small gesture of warmth, a surprise message, a tender evening, a rare compliment, and that single breadcrumb is enough to keep you hooked, hoping they still care. The trap here is the fear of abandonment. Every time they withdraw, you feel not good enough, and you pour all your energy into proving your worth. Your brain's reward deficit system gets activated. The less you receive, the more you crave. Like an addiction, you live in a cycle of waiting for the next dose of affection. You convince yourself that if you are just patient enough, loving enough, sacrificial enough, they will change. But in reality, the cycle only tightens, pulling you further away from yourself. B, the vulnerable avoidant. Unlike the coldness of the distant type, this avoidant shows up as fragile, insecure, even needy at times. They often carry self-doubt, anxiety, and withdrawal. In conversations, you may hear them say, "I don't deserve you," or "no one really wants me." They expose a wound beneath the surface, and if you are a deeply compassionate person, your heart is immediately moved. The trap here is pity and responsibility. You see their pain, and you believe it is your duty to rescue them. Every time you think of leaving, guilt crashes down. If I abandon them, who will be there for them? If I stop enduring, will they collapse? And so, you willingly step into the role of parent or therapist to your partner. But the more pity you feel, the more you lose yourself. You spend your energy trying to heal someone who is not ready to change, and the result is your exhaustion while they remain stuck in place. C, the grandiose avoidant. This avoidant often appears among those who are outwardly successful and magnetic. They may hold social status, financial stability, or at the very least, they shine in groups with their charisma and confidence. They make you believe that life with them will be full, glamorous, and exciting. And indeed, they know how to give you spectacular moments, a luxurious trip, a dazzling party, glittering promises about the future. But behind the sparkle lies shadow, silence, coldness, cutting words that chip away at your sense of worth. The trap here is self-doubt and emotional FOMO. You begin to think, maybe I'm asking for too much. What if I walk away from the best person I'll ever meet? What if someone else gets the better version of them? And that fear of being replaced keeps you tied even tighter. The combination of dazzling light and chilling darkness traps you in the tormenting question, am I wrong for wanting more? These three avoidant types, distant, vulnerable, and grandiose, are like three doors leading into the same room, the room of stuckness. But each door has a different kind of lock. And if you cannot recognize the specific way you're being held, you'll continue to live in the same spiral without an exit. Once we've seen the three avoidant types and the subtle traps each one creates, a clear truth begins to emerge. What keeps you stuck is not weakness, nor being too sensitive, but rather the psychological mechanisms embedded in the avoidant attachment style itself. These traps touch the deepest fears of being human, the fear of abandonment, the fear of not being enough, the fear that you are the reason love has failed. It is this direct hit to your core wounds that pulls you into a spiral you cannot escape, and unless you learn to recognize it, you will easily mistake this stuckness for true love. So what is the solution? The key here is to understand this. You do not have the power to change them. You cannot force an avoidant person to become emotionally available, nor can you turn them into a safe partner if they are not willing to step onto their own healing path. Waiting for them to change is like standing in the middle of the desert hoping for rain to fall immediately, and the longer you wait, the thirstier and more depleted you become. The real solution lies within you, rebuilding a secure attachment system inside yourself. This is not easy, but it is the only path out of the spiral. The first step is to learn how to recognize when you are being triggered. Each time they go silent, withdraw, or turn cold, pause and ask yourself, why am I reacting so strongly right now? Is this an old fear inside me being reactivated? Only when you can see your own mechanism clearly will you stop being controlled by it. The next step is to establish clear boundaries. Boundaries are not walls of coldness, but gentle reminders to yourself, this is what I can accept, and this is what I cannot. With boundaries, you no longer settle for the breadcrumbs of affection they throw your way. You begin to know you deserve more than that, and you commit to protecting your heart. Most importantly, you must return to heal the root wounds, the fear of abandonment, the unconscious guilt, and the self-doubt. These are the fertile grounds where avoidants plant their traps. If you avoid facing them, the cycle continues. But when you are brave enough to look directly at them and heal layer by layer, you gradually feel freer. You no longer chase after them for validation, no longer bind yourself through pity, and no longer compare yourself in ways that leave you feeling inferior. Breaking free from an avoidant is not only about the act of leaving, it is an entire process of remaking yourself. It is the journey back to a secure attachment system where you know you are worthy of full love, where you can trust that closeness does not mean inevitable abandonment, and where you can love without losing yourself. And once you arrive here, the avoidant no longer has any power to keep you bound. That is the moment when you finally become truly free. At the end of this journey, you'll see a truth that isn't easy to accept. What kept you stuck was never really them. It was the unhealed wounds within you. The avoidant only touched those old fears, but you were the one holding the rope that tied you down. And once you find the courage to face them, to heal, to set boundaries, and to return to a secure attachment within yourself, you will realize you never truly needed them to feel whole. Love will no longer be about chasing to be chosen, but about the presence of two free people, equal and willing to give. So ask yourself, do you want to keep living in the loop, surviving on breadcrumbs of affection? Or do you want to step out and claim the love you truly deserve? This path isn't easy, but it is the most worthwhile journey you could ever choose, because it not only frees you from a stagnant relationship, but it also opens a life of freedom, strength, and genuine love. The final question I leave with you is this: are you ready to love yourself enough to stop being stuck and to begin again?